I was just 24 years old when I made the hardest decision I'd ever make in my life. I checked myself into a hospital and I met with a surgeon and a nurse. And they had a few questions for me because of my age. And the first one was, how many children do you have? None. I had just lost my mother. She had suffered her life with schizophrenia, which sent her into a downward spiral and absolutely shattered my family. Her life, it was a tragedy. It was a nightmare, and it was hereditary. So I knew that if I had my own children, that this nightmare could start all over again. And so I was there that day to give up my right to have my own children. And I remember the doctor looking at me and he said, you know, you might want to give this like 10 years. You might want to give medical science a chance. You know, new things happen every day. We make new discoveries. And I said to him that in 10 years, I totally believe that medical science will do great things. But the past 19 has showed me when it comes to mental illness, we are in the dark ages. But this decision would haunt me as it ended every relationship that I was in for 3 years. Until finally I found somebody who had a completely different perspective on things. And she found the loophole. She said, we should adopt the child. And I was all about it. But adoption is a very complicated and long process. And if you're trying to adopt a child, a baby especially, by the time you start the paperwork, this child's not even in the world. So we'd always wonder, when is this person going to come into the world? On March 26, I had a dream. It was so simple. It was just the sweetest little face staring at me from across the room. And it wasn't even what I saw that made the impact, it was what I felt. There was this absolutely amazing sense of serenity. And I woke up my wife and I told her about the dream and we marked it on the calendar. We said, this has to be the day this person has entered the world. But the phone didn't ring for 2 months, and when it did, they said, we have a match. It's a little girl. She was born in China on January 26th and abandoned on that same day. She was outside the social welfare institution, and they brought her in, and they searched for her family for 3 months, and with no luck. But all she needed was a loving home, and the nannies called her beautiful aspiration. It was that date, January 26th, 2 months to the exact day when I had that dream. And I am utterly convinced that is how long it takes a prayer to get to the far side of the world. So the next month, my wife and I were on a plane to China. We landed in a small town of 15 million people. I took a bus to the hotel, and I remember walking in that room and sitting on the bed, and it was just a crib and an empty stroller. And I looked at that stroller, and 3 days of insomnia and worry and anxiety just came crashing down on me, and I blacked out. My wife woke me up at 5:30. She said, we got to go, 6 o'clock, it's the time. So we got dressed, and I ran down to the lobby, and we were there with 11 other families to adopt children. And my heart was just pounding out of my chest. And they opened the door, and there was all these little girls in the arms of their nannies. And I hadn't been in that room for 30 seconds when I saw the sweetest little face looking at me from across the room. And in that moment, all the heartache in my life, all the worry just vanished. And I was embraced by this amazing serenity. And I realized that I had not only been living the dream that I had, but I was living the impossible dream. And that is the one where I get to be a father in this lifetime to the most amazing daughter. And her and I, we have this in common. that both of us had our futures taken from our hands. But this university wastes nothing. And it gave us the greatest thing we could ever ask for. It gave us each other. Thank you.